Hi, my name is Professor Silver, and welcome to Pokemon Explained, where we focus on the narrative arcs of all of our favorite Pokemon from the anime. Today, we'll be deep diving into Ash's Kingler, breaking down all of its battles, episode appearances, history, and of course, its character development. Even though Kingler only appeared in a handful of battles, its incredible performance in each and every one of them has earned it a place in the hearts of Pokemon fans worldwide. Kingler is most famous for being the MVP of the Indigo League. Few could have predicted that Kingler, of all Pokemon, would rack up the most wins in the Indigo League. In a brighter timeline, Kingler would have absolutely wrecked Richie and advanced Ash to the top 8 of the Indigo League, and possibly even the final. The reason why Kingler's MVP performance is so surprising is that when Ash first captured Kingler, as a Krabby, it was transported directly to Oak's lab, as he already had 6 Pokemon on his person. It never traveled with Ash, appeared in any battles, and basically didn't do anything during the entirety of the Kanto saga. All Krabby really did was say hello to Ash and get made fun of by Gary. Krabby's capture helped demonstrate how the Pokemon storage system worked in the anime. It was explained that Pokemon are transported wherever a trainer got his or her Pokedex. In Ash's case, that was Oak's lab. Because of its transfer, Kingler was the quintessential representative of the countless Pokemon that are permanently stored in the PC once captured. Of course, where Kingler differs is that it wasn't permanently stored. It had a few shining moments of pure awesomeness. So now that we know its significance, let's examine its history. Kingler first debuted as a Krabby in Mystery at the Lighthouse. Personality-wise, Krabby was quick to anger, bold, and full of energy. Ash was determined to capture it, so he could prove to Misty that he was capable of catching a Pokemon without battling. Ash seemed to have forgotten that he captured both Bulbasaur and Pidgeotto with the help of Pikachu's electricity. Ash found Krabby to be rather small and shrimpy, but still quite catchable. Even though Ash found it cute, Krabby responded to Ash's prodding by placing his finger in a very painful vice grip. Ash was so mad that he picked up a stick and tried to strike Krabby. Luckily, Krabby used Vice Grip on the stick and prevented any actual abuse. Much like Caterpie before it, Krabby was then captured without sustaining any actual damage. Since only weak or low-level Pokemon can be captured without injury, we'll assume that Krabby's immense power-up in the league was due to extensive training under Oak's tutelage. Ash was both startled and frightened when Krabby's Pokeball teleported away, but was relieved to see Krabby still alive on Oak's telescreen. Ash didn't seem to mind that it was happily lounging in a fishbowl about 10 times too small for a Pokemon its size. Ash's additional fears that Professor Oak would eat Krabby were also relieved. Ash's elation was quickly dashed when he discovered that Gary also captured a Krabby, and its size was massive. It's never made clear why Ash didn't rotate Krabby onto his team. It seems honestly a bit cruel that Ash traveled through Kanto with only 5 Pokemon for most of the region, when he had Krabby, Muck, and Tauros wasting away in storage at Oak's lab. It's entirely possible that Krabby was meant to have a much larger role in the anime, as Brock explicitly stated that Ash could easily switch out one of his Pokemon for another by clicking the white button on his Pokedex. The concept was entirely dropped in future episodes. If Ash ever wanted to exchange a Pokemon, he was always shown calling Professor Oak beforehand. I've always wondered what the series would have been like if Ash's Pokedex actually could transfer one Pokemon for another. Would we have seen his reserves being used more often? Would he have captured more Pokemon? We'll never know, because it's been 20 years and it still hasn't happened. As the series progressed and Krabby spent more and more time with the professor, it began to manifest more and more of his mannerisms. Much like Oak, Krabby learned to love poetry and tea time. Krabby's brash nature calmed as it became more subdued and ultimately more reserved. In round 1 began, Krabby joined Ash for the very first match of the Indigo Plateau. Despite Misty's concerns over its untested abilities, Ash chose Krabby as the match would take place on a water battlefield. At this point, it had absolutely 0 battle experience and never been used with Ash on a team. Ash and Krabby fought against the very flamboyant magician/trainer, Mandy. Ash remained ever confident in Krabby's abilities, even when Krabby's first opponent was revealed to be the rather large grass type, Exeggutor. Exeggutor started off the battle, launching a Psy-Wave at Krabby. Luckily, Krabby evaded by hopping into the water and bolstering its defenses using Harden. Very quickly, Exeggutor uncovered Krabby's hiding spot and used Psychic to create a Whirlpool. The Whirlpool sucked Krabby into it. As things began to dour, Ash tried to recall Krabby, but his Pokeball was unable to make contact. Somehow, Krabby pulled itself out of the Whirlpool, latched onto Exeggutor using Vice Grip, and inflicted major damage. Exeggutor quickly began to panic and tried to use Hypnosis to stop Krabby, but the attack missed. Having literally changed the tides of the battle, Krabby proceeded to knock out Exeggutor through a combination of Leer and Stomp. The battle was so intense that Krabby evolved into a Kingler, the Rocky of the Pokemon world. Kingler reveled in its victory, and Ash was so thrilled that he decided to stick with Kingler through the rest of the battle. This was the first time one of Ash's Pokemon ever evolved during a league or a gym match. Not only was this win impressive because it evolved, but it was also impressive because Krabby defeated a grass type. For those of you that may not recall, Squirtle had actually just lost to a Ninetales, a fire type, a few episodes prior, showing that Krabby really was Ash's strongest water type during the Kanto region. What's a bit depressing for Squirtle here is that Kingler actually racked up more wins in this one battle than Squirtle did in the entire region. Mandy followed up Exeggutor with his Seadra, reasoning that Kingler's strength would be no match for the Dragon Pokemon's speed. Seadra speedily dodged Kingler's water gun, but was knocked off course by Kingler's bubble attack. Seizing its opportunity, Kingler knocked out Seadra with the Crab Hammer. Down to his last Pokemon, Mandy selected his Golbat, hoping that its flying type advantage would defeat Kingler. Ash pushed forward with Kingler, confident in its abilities. As the battle began, Golbat dodged Kingler's Vice Grip and launched a very powerful Razor Wind. Right before Golbat could launch a super effective Mega Drain, Kingler obliterated the bat-like Pokemon with its newly learned Hyper Beam. Kingler won the entire battle by itself without Ash needing to switch to either Squirtle or Pikachu. What made Kingler's battle debut so memorable was that it was a classic underdog story. Krabby was entirely ignored, untrained, and untested before the battle began. In only a few short minutes, Krabby transformed itself from an afterthought into what I would still consider Ash's second most powerful water type after Greninja. Kingler's win cemented the Pinsir Pokemon as one of Ash's most legendary reserves. Kingler's learning Hyper Beam during the battle was the first time one of Ash's Pokemon used the move. At this point in the anime, Hyper Beam was still presented as one of the most powerful attacks. During the third round, Ash again used Kingler, this time against Pete Pebbleman's Cloyster in Fire and Ice. Kingler connected first with a flurry of Crab Hammers. To combat Kingler's offense, Cloyster used Withdraw to bolster its defense. Though nearing exhaustion, Kingler hammered away until Cloyster's shell eventually broke, winning it the battle. With Cloyster defeated, Kingler next faced Pete Pebbleman's very speedy Arcanine. Ash was thrilled to have his water type going up against a fire type. Unfortunately, Kingler was too exhausted from its battle with Cloyster to do any significant damage. Arcanine quickly dodged Kingler's bubble and countered with a game-ending Dragon Rage. To its credit, Kingler tried to stand up, but unfortunately, it just fell right back down. What always struck me as odd was that Gary's Arcanine had defeated Giovanni's Kingler just a few episodes prior. Fortunately, Ash was still able to defeat Pete Pebbleman as Pikachu defeated Arcanine instead. The battle against Pete was Kingler's final showcase in the Indigo League. It's possible that Arcanine's attack had done so much damage that Kingler wasn't capable of fighting against Jeanette or against Richie. Though Kingler would have been completely unsuited for the former, it would have been perfect against Richie. Kingler would have wrecked both Zippo and Happy in battle. Kingler proved a far more powerful choice than Squirtle, as, at this point in the anime, Squirtle had yet to learn Hydro Pump and amassed any real wins. After Ash placed in the league's top 16, Kingler returned to Oak's lab, while Ash headed to the Orange Islands so that he could enter the Orange Islands Winners' Cup. In Hello Pumelo, Ash's Snorlax fell into a coma, causing him to consider using Kingler during his championship match. Ash ultimately opted for Tauros, hoping for it to replicate Kingler's beginner's luck. Instead, Kingler was next used during the Johto Saga when Ash competed in the World Cup, an anime-only tournament where trainers exclusively used water Pokemon. Up until its return, Kingler had only made sporadic appearances on the telescreen alongside Ash's other reserves. In one of the more notable appearances, Kingler was mistakenly shown as a Krabby. After advancing through the very first round of the World Cup, Ash exchanged his Bailey for Kingler when he realized he would need a second water type for his upcoming battle against Misty. The only other water type on his team was his Totodile, as Squirtle had recently left to rejoin the Squirtle squad. Ash and Misty faced each other in the perfect match. Misty opened the battle strongly by using her Poliwhirl to knock out Ash's Totodile, leaving Kingler to face the Tadpole Pokemon itself. Poliwhirl opened with Bubble, which Kingler easily deflected. Kingler first countered Poliwhirl's Bubble by using its Crabhammer as a projectile. The sheer force of Crabhammer was so powerful that Kingler turned the battlefield into a wave pool. Once Poliwhirl was trapped within the waves, Kingler defeated it with another Crabhammer. Misty next tried to use her Corsola, but instead, Psyduck released itself. In what should have been a very easy win, turned into one of Ash's most embarrassing losses. Kingler started the battle showcasing its impressively speedy swimming. Unfortunately, Ash failed Kingler as he foolishly commanded it to place Psyduck in its vice grip. Having never encountered Psyduck before, Kingler applied insanely tight pressure, causing Psyduck's psychic abilities to activate. Psyduck then finished off the match using Confusion to send Kingler slamming into Ash, winning Misty the match. After its battle with Psyduck, Kingler returned to Oak's lab, where it remained until the Johto League. In Love Pokemon style, Ash intended to use Kingler against the Fire-type specialist Macy, but Kingler was shocked into submission right before the match began when it rescued a trio of Voltorb. Because of its injury, Kingler was the only one of Ash's Pokemon not to fight in the Johto League. A recently returned Squirtle replaced Kingler against Macy and still won Ash the match. Since the Johto League, Kingler has mainly been relegated to cameos. It's often seen whenever Ash returns to Pallet Town and among Ash's other Oaked Pokemon, most notably Corphish and Tauros. Unlike many of Ash's other reserves, Kingler never returned to battle in the Battle Frontier or in the Sinnoh League. Having missed out on the last 3 reunions, it's possible we may never see Kingler fight again. Of course, it's always possible that Ash may recall Kingler one day so that it could debut its Gigantamax form or just appear in a battle. Since its capture, Kingler has always been special for being the first Pokemon Ash captured when he already had a full team of 6. It wasn't until Sewaddle's capture during Pokemon Black and White over 13 years later that there finally existed another. Ash attempted to rotate his Pokemon during Black and White, but the writers failed miserably in giving each Pokemon their proper screen time. So maybe it's for the best that Krabby never actually traveled with Ash. We got one shining moment of awesomeness, and that's a lot better than a bunch of mediocrity. There's really not much further I can say about Kingler. I just really like the Pokemon. It's both simple and uncomplicated, and all of its episodes were immensely fun. It's unfortunate that Kingler's spectacular debut never received a follow-up, but at this point, I don't really expect it anymore. Kingler's chapter has likely been closed. All in all, Kingler ended his short Pokemon battle career at 0 gym wins and 4 league wins. Kingler won against Mandy's Executor, Mandy's Seadra, and Mandy's Golbat. It also defeated Pete Pebbleman's Cloyster and lost to Pete's Arcanine. Its other win was against Misty's Poliwhirl, and its other loss was against Misty's Psyduck, leading to have a final battle record of 5 wins and 2 losses. That's all for today, folks. I'll be back next week to cover another one of Ash's Kanto Pokemon. I'd love to hear which Pokemon you want me to cover in the future. I'm open to all of them. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell, and comment any feedback you may have. I've got plans for about 200 videos already, and I want to make them as awesome as possible. Let me know in the comments how I can do that. My name again is Professor Silver, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I will respond to every comment personally, so let me know what you think. Catch you later.